Welcome to the Legion Strength and Conditioning Podcast. You can check us out at legionsc.com or follow us on Instagram at legion.sc.
Okay, and welcome to the 100th episode of the Legion Podcast. John, I can't believe we're at this stage, right? We've got 100 episodes. How do you feel about that?
100 episodes in, finally streamlined the team down a little bit to the top two. Kind of cut out the dead weight, so that's perfect.
Yeah, he talks too much sometimes. Anyway, so what we're going to do is a little bit different for this episode. I'm going to interview John, and that's because John is an elite coach, and John is, in 2 weeks' time, going to be pulling his hair out at Madison. I believe, John, you have a teen athlete, and you have one team going, don't you?
Yep, that's right.
Amazing. So, we'll try to get into some of the nuts and bolts of sort of programming, how to sort of manage working with it basically individuals and within the sort of team setup and what training might look like over a week. We're basically just going to get all the secret juicy details and release them a couple of days before the games, so then all the other coaches can just relish in what they've done wrong. But yeah, so here we go. So John, can you just give us a bit of an overview of who you have going in the team, who you might work with individually, or like how you work with them all together as a team, and then also, with your team athlete as well. Or in sort of what capacity do you work with the team athlete?
Yeah, so for the team, we always like to joke that we're like a true affiliate team, in the sense that you see all these top teams that are coming through. Mayhem's been there forever. And this year, Reykjavik is probably them and Oslo being the two teams that are like the challengers to Mayhem. I believe Oslo is pretty much an affiliate team. But, obviously Reykjavik just formed for this year. I don't see them being together next year. Mayhem recruits every year, brings people to their gym. But we are actually an affiliate team. Two of our people are coaches at the gym and they work full time at the gym. The other two have been at the gym for the last four or 5 years, and both have full time jobs. And so part of that I do think gives as an advantage, in the sense that they all know each other well. They've been trained together for a long time. At this stage, the newest person on the team has been at the gym for over a year, and they've worked out together, every day for the last year in some capacity. Most of the time, it is individual training, though. We don't really kick into the team stuff until probably December is when we really start to focus on the team aspect. And I think some people have the impression that Mayhem is training as a team year round. And it's like, to an extent they are, but you don't need to be doing, synchro practice and worm practice all year round. You need to be getting better individually as an athlete and then pull it together as a team as the season gets closer. And that's one thing that, we've done over the last year. Everyone's been doing individual training and focusing on their weaknesses. And there's a lot of crossover in what they do, and they're doing a lot of the same stuff. But to get to be a better team, it was important for them to be better individually as athletes. Even as the season gets into it, even now, since between semifinals and the games, they still do individual training. So about 2 to 3 days a week, they'll do an individual session, and then there'll be either a session they do by themselves, but the whole team is doing the same thing, or we'll be doing team sessions. And we tend to get about 3 team sessions a week. Again, 2 of our athletes have full-time jobs. And that makes it tricky to schedule more team training sessions. So it's kind of one of our athletes, Cooper, he works in a hospital, so he's got a fluctuating schedule. And he works 3 to 4 days a week. And on those days, he can fit in, an hour of training after work, but he works 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So, it's it makes it tough training wise in that respect. You know, he can get a little bit of training in on days he works. On days he doesn't work, he can fit in 2 sessions. And on days he doesn't work, we'll try and do team training sessions. But Alyssa, she works for CrossFit HQ. So her hours are normally kind of that 9 to 5 type schedule. She's flexible and she can work her schedule around a little bit. But yeah, as a team, they do usually 3 sessions a week where they work out doing team stuff. The rest of the time is either individual stuff that they all do the same thing, or individual stuff where they're working on their separate weaknesses.
Okay, so and when they do come together as a team, like, are you talking about like that's just one piece of their training, or are they doing like are they doing a full session together, and sort of what how do you place that within the week? I imagine if Cooper is on sort of hospital shifts and stuff like that, that can be a little bit different, you know, like every week or so. So
yeah,
do you sort of just manage it a bit more, just a little bit more freely?
Yeah, I mean, he's pretty good in the sense that Friday, Saturday, he almost always has off. So he works his schedule to get those 2 days. So normally we'll do, you know, a 2 to 3 hour session on a Friday afternoon. And the length is usually determined by what Liz is able to work out with her schedule. You know, if she can create the time in her schedule, we can get a longer session in. If she has meetings, and, you know, she uses the office at the gym for some meetings just so she can go right into training. But yeah, and then Saturday morning is normally about 2 hour training session. And usually we'll get Tuesday afternoon or Wednesday early morning, you know, like 7 a.m., 6:30 a.m. on a Wednesday, or Tuesday afternoon as well. So that tends to be pretty typical for us.
And are you there for like the majority of them? Are you sort of like sat on a stool hitting them with a PVC pipe and shouting orders at them?
Yeah, pretty much. I haven't hit them for a while though.
Okay. Keeping them fresh.
Yeah. No, I mean, most of the time, honestly, it kind of depends what stage of the season we're at. The later in the season, the less input I give them during training. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Part of it is they need to be comfortable with working things out without any input from me. You know, to know how to break the reps down, to know if something's going wrong, how to fix it, without me being there to kind of tell them what to do. They need to replicate what that competition feeling is like, of just being out there by yourself and be like, okay, we got to do this. We got to take a step back and figure this out. Earlier in the season, I'll tend to do a little more coaching. So give them more feedback and work on things. But I mean, like with most of the teams at the games, these are all experienced athletes and they've been doing CrossFit for a long time. They've been competing for a long time. So the amount of, I guess, movement coaching goes down and the amount of strategy goes up. So, I mean, this. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, like, I mean, do you put them into situations whereby they have to, like, they're almost forced to problem solve, and like you're sort of saying that you're trying to get them to manage situations and stuff like that? Like, at the moment, are you sort of giving maybe some tips and advice of like, okay, maybe this should be like how you approach the workout, or do you sometimes you just say, hey, this is the task, get it done?
I will normally give them like a framework of the structure of the workout. For some workouts, I'll say, okay, we're trying to stay unbroken on the toes to bar through this workout. And, you know, maybe it's 4 rounds and there's 20 synchro toes to bar, and every round it's like, okay, today we're shooting for unbroken. And if that means other things suffer a little bit, that's okay. Other times I'll say, you guys do what you want to do, break how you want to break. And, you know, usually someone will take the lead and be like, okay, I think we can stay unbroken for this. Let's go for it. Other times they'll take a break. But I think as a team, one of their biggest strengths is pacing and strategy in a workout. It's very rare that they burn out in a workout. And again, a lot of that comes from just knowing each other well and training together for so long. They know when someone needs to slow things down. They know when they can push. And they're kind of a mixed team in the sense of what they're good at. So there's always someone in the team who's able to push because they find a workout a little bit easier. And, you know, they can take the lead, they can drive the pace, they can push people. But yeah, overall, it's a pretty well balanced team for that kind of thing. And their ability to adapt in a workout is good. And like I say, I try not to manufacture situations where things are going to go wrong. But there'll be occasions where they're doing a workout and they've worked out a rep scheme beforehand, which I haven't given them input on. And then, you know, I'll give them a few no reps, even if they're good reps, and just see how and just see how they change things. And, you know, last year at the games, the final workout they did, it ended with, I'm going to look it up because I'm completely blank. I think it was just a push press. Let me see. It was like a worm push press, I believe. Let's see. Where are we at? Oh, worm hang clean and jerks? That doesn't seem right. Maybe it was worm hang clean and jerks. Anyway, they kept getting no reps on the overhead part. And yeah, I thought it was just a push press, but maybe it was a clean jerk. Anyway, they kept getting no reps on the overhead, and they were all good reps. The judge had been misinformed about what the standard was. So, you know, they were cycling through, and there was sets of 10 before they had to move the worm, and they were having to do sets of like 13, 14 reps at a time. So it's that kind of situation where I'm trying to replicate it a little bit in the gym. It's like, yeah, you think that's a good rep, but you're still getting no reps. And how are you going to change your rep scheme, and how are you going to change your strategy and your rest time and things like that?
Yeah. And then, so within the training, would you say all the stuff that they do together, is it sort of more of your gamified type workout where it's like your typical full time or AMRAP or whatever it is, or do you do any sort of more, you know, like interval based training, or more training where, you know, maybe someone has some sort of like aerobic intervals or some sprints to go through, and they're just sort of together and they're doing that, what you would consider maybe more of an individual piece of training? Do you have them doing that, or is it more just like the competition style workouts?
So for the team training, we more stick to the competition workouts, simply because they get limited time as a team. So when we're as a team in the gym, we want to maximize that time for things that they can't do individually. And then on those individual sessions where they're all doing the same thing, just at different times of the day, that's where we're going to push more on the stuff that you might see at the games, you know, the waterfall type events, things like that. Some sprint intervals, some work rest pieces, things like that, where you can work individually and it's not required for everyone to be at the gym together. So the team sessions, we do less of those things. Again, just maximizing, you know, worm work, synchro work, things where everyone is required to be working at the same time. Yeah.
Okay. And then within the training that they do individually, are there elements and pieces which are exactly the same, or are you sort of individualizing everyone's training? And I suppose that question is also, what does it look like now versus open versus pre-open, when these guys were going through their like pre-season, off-season type phase?
Yeah. So, I mean, everyone does do, apart from right now, really the last 2 weeks, everyone's been doing the same thing. And there's been a couple of tweaks for individual stuff, but almost everything's been exactly the same. Everything from kind of semifinals and before, people were working, I think, 3 pieces a week, which were individual and really based on what they needed to focus on. So a couple of the team were really focused on the aerobic capacity, working on their running, working on their rowing, things which are comparatively weaker for them. And, you know, it's all relative here. They're all very good athletes, and weakness is a relative term, right? Two of the team were working more on aerobic capacity, two were working more on the strength side of things, just as we needed to kind of improve on an individual basis. And that's been kind of running since the end of the games last year. So open, we didn't focus on the open at all this year. We didn't change our training for it. We didn't, the open workout was done just as part of their session for the day. So they did their other training, they did the open workout. And we just kind of let that fall as it was going to. The training for quarterfinals, things changed up a little bit, obviously. We were working a bit more on the synchro stuff, the kind of movements we were expecting to see in quarterfinals, but we were still focused on semifinals in the games. Quarterfinals were by no means a guarantee, but knowing their capacity and knowing how they perform, it was never an issue of, I don't know if we're going to qualify for semifinals. It was just a case of, okay, we want to perform well because we want to get, that good heat seeding for semifinals and all this kind of thing. And semifinals was really where we kind of focused our prep because, the team won Granite Games last year, won Atlas Games this year. Like, on paper, it's, cool, guaranteed go to the games. But in theory, it's, one bad workout and you can be done. So there's only a few teams, I think, that would ever just focus on the games. And I think there's enough crossover between semifinals and the games where training for semifinals is still benefiting you for training for the games.
Yeah, so I suppose, how does it feel? Because one of the things that, it's the not worrying about the open or less so about quarterfinals. For you as a coach, that's a bit of a call, and I understand that it might be only the case of, okay, you just don't do the workout twice, as opposed to once, or you do maybe a little bit less practice or something like that. But does it ever get a little bit? Do you ever feel a little bit on edge, being like, oh, we should have maybe spent a bit more time trying this out or something like that? Because I know I had it a little bit with one athlete who I was like, you're not going to focus on the open. It's one and done type of situation. And then it was like, oh, there's only 3 workouts, or it's like that didn't go too well. So for you, you must be confident in the fact that you're like, okay, we're not paying as much attention to this type of stuff, but at the same time, does it ever get a bit close?
Not for the team. I think I forget where they finished this year in the open, but I'm going to pull it up. But it was, I want to say, I think it was the top 200 teams went into the quarterfinals, I believe, something like that. And the team ended up, let's find us, 36th in the world. And it was top 200 in North America, I think it worked out as. And the team was, 19th in North America. And again, that was, no one repeated a workout. No one, took the day off to do that workout or rested the day before or anything like that. But yeah, I was never concerned for that. Quarterfinals, there's always an element of concern in the back of your mind. But the team, again, they went 19th in the open, and then in quarterfinals, they bumped up to, I think, 11th in North America, and it was top 80 go to semifinals. Again, it was never really a doubt. There were a couple of workouts that weren't ideally suited to us as a team. And so I'm looking at the results here. We had a 44th and a 52nd, which were comparatively bad workouts for us. But we had to be top 80, and you see the way they structure it is, you see the leaderboard after the first 2 workouts. And to see the first workout at 44th, when that was what we expected to be our worst workout, it's like, okay, we're good here. The other workouts were 7th, 11th, and 14th. So it was like, no issues there. And no one was really concerned. We didn't repeat anything, and it was just straight through.
Yeah. If you have experienced competitors, I think that's always good. But I think it's, we did that podcast, didn't we, about I think it was like mid-open, and I was like, don't get so crazy over your open scores. The goal was not that. But yeah. Now, because I think that, with as a sport, CrossFit is always toeing the line of like, how much can you handle? How much are how much are you able to just like, keep piling onto your training? And I understand that maybe with team training or team athletes, it might be a little bit different to an individual, but people do open themselves up for injuries or, niggles or whatever it is that are just like constantly sort of like there and that type of thing. And I think that is a big part of working with higher level athletes, is trying to sort of navigate that and find a way that you can sort of keep the training sort of moving forward. Like how would you manage if, you don't need to give anything away with the team, but like, how would you manage if, okay, you've got an athlete who's just avoiding squatting patterns for a couple of weeks because their knees are just playing up or something like that. But are you, obviously you're going to be adapting the workouts and that type of stuff, but is it something that's quite challenging when it's sort of part of a team compared to like when it's just an individual situation?
Yeah, it definitely does affect it. We've had a few minor injuries come up this year, which have limited, like honestly, the run up to semifinals was pretty rough for the team in terms of small issues and injuries that affected them. So it wasn't smooth training. We were having to adapt a few things. There was a 2-week period where we were really struggling to kind of hold it together, just because of the things that we were having to avoid doing, or doing too much volume on, or whatever it is. This will probably go out after the games, right? Why not? Probably won't.
Oh, what I was thinking
is just pre-games.
Well,
yeah.
we can cut whatever comes up if this comes out pre-games. But yeah,
no, it's fine. One of the athletes on the team right now has an issue with their elbow from the snatch ladder at semifinals, and they've been avoiding most upper body pulling for the last few weeks, and it's kind of working that stuff back in now, but there's still pain issues and weakness issues and things like that. So, it makes it tough. We've definitely had to adapt some of the workouts we've been doing. There's always that thing in the back of your mind of how's it going to hold up at the games? Because we can't obviously adapt what we do at the games. And they're able to do every movement right now. But they haven't snatched for 4 weeks. They haven't cleaned heavy for 4 weeks. Anything through the elbow, limited on the upper body pulling. So like chest to bar, ring muscle ups, bar muscle ups are a little better because they're not as much of an elbow bend in the pull. But there's a lot of stuff we've had to avoid for that athlete. And the good thing is it's something they're already good at. It's not something we had to be hammering anyway. But, if there's a max clean and jerk, which wouldn't surprise me, if that event comes up at the games, we're going to have to take a hit there. There's not much we can do. The athlete hasn't been able to go heavy for a while, and there's going to be a little drop off in top end strength. If there's a super high volume of pegboards or legless rope climbs, like that movement is going to be rough, and that person can do them really well, but is likely going to be in a lot of pain doing them. So it's, these things happen, and with the intensity and volume that is needed to be at the games, there's always that opportunity for injury. And it's just how it goes. That's how it goes in any sport. When you're trying to push to that top level, the risks go up. Yeah,
especially in a sport where, you just got to do more of stuff. and just keep going. Yeah. So I think one of the things that's always impressed me about you, John, is the way that you're able to recollect workouts, have a good idea and a good guessing game for workouts that are going to come up, and it seems that you can navigate the CrossFit Games website better than anyone else out there. So I suppose, like you just said, hey, you expect heavy clean and jerk to come up at the games and stuff like that. But like, so what are some of the, the more crazier pieces of equipment and tasks and challenges that they're throwing teams through these days? How are you training for that? How much stuff are you doing on the water at the moment? You're doing stuff like mountain biking, and I think one day maybe they'll like include some form of fighting. So have you done any MMA training for them or anything that to get ready for the unknown and noble?
So here's the thing, like, yeah, I can.
You just got a book out.
I kind of have a good leather. I have my
leather bound
notepad. So like this is this is how I break down the games training, and I look through everything that's been done for the last 3 years. So working through different movements, how frequently they come up in games workouts, to kind of get a perspective on how the programming gets shaped. And the big takeaway from this was there's a lot of sled work. So they use the big bob multiple times. You can see in total there have been 9 events in the last 3 years that have included either a push or a pull of the big bob. Right, so there's going to be a decent amount of that. The gymnastics, fairly consistent across the board. Always handstand walks, GHDs, chest to bar. The running workout, there's been 2 long runs, 2 short runs. Barbell work tends to be on the lighter side, with occasional heavy events. So kind of break it down like that. Break it down by time domains. So you can see in the bottom here, we have the different time domains of what comes up over the last 4 years. So I kind of, research what's happened and where the trends go. And then I try to take the majority of the training to kind of replicate those things. And then this 20% of training, which is just out of left field, completely different to what we've seen, to keep them kind of on their toes. And it's not going to be exactly like it's been in years past, but for the most part, it's going to be the same structure, the same kind of movements. So it's understanding what the general expectation is, being prepared for that, and then having the preparation outside of expectation as well. So like this year, 95% sure it's not an open water swim, and they're going to be doing a pool swim based on, things CrossFit has posted, things we've heard through the grapevine. So whereas last year we were, trying to get into open water, our team is not a strong swimming team. We have a couple of strong swimmers on the team, but as a whole, they're not great at it. Last year we were trying to get out in the open water a few times. Post games, we realized we didn't do enough open water. We did a lot of pool work. This year, the team's been swimming in a pool since the games last year, basically. We've had pretty much a full 12 months where I'd say 3 times a month they've been swimming. And last weekend, we did an open water swim, followed by a ruck, which I didn't go on. And the team won't really forgive that, because apparently it was the worst thing they've ever done, and it was terrible, and they don't think I could do it.
Were you there on FaceTime?
Wait. No, I just... So there's a very interesting dynamic in the team where I am the general figure to be hated, and they can all kind of direct their hate towards me. So there are times when they finish a workout, and I know just to give them space because they are not happy with what they had just had to do. And the ruck was one of them. I sent them a text as they were driving back. I was just like, how's everyone doing? And then I just kind of left it there and didn't get involved because they were
just got like a load of abusive messages.
I mean, it was like a 3.5 mile ruck where they were carrying 50 or 30 pounds. But it was pretty much just straight up. It was like, you know, 1.75 miles up, 1.75 miles down. And they went about 2,200 feet of elevation in that time. And there are times when they were like almost scrambling up as opposed to being able to walk. I heard a few tears were shed, and yeah, it was a rough thing they had to do. But as I explained to them, that was kind of the peak of their training, and everything is kind of on a downslope now. And I definitely try and make it so that nothing they do at the games is going to feel worse than what they've done in training. So however we pair movements together, whatever time domains we're doing, however difficult I make things, the goal is that everything at the games is easier than we've done in training. And obviously the cumulative effect of workouts plays into the games, and the adrenaline up and down plays into it. And we can't be prepared for everything, but knowing that they've done stuff for us, they've managed to complete it, even though it's completely unreasonable, is what's going to help them at the games for that. And they realize that as well. Like, as annoyed as they are in the moment, they understand why we're doing it and what the purpose is.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. You want to make sure that, even if it is just like one thing that they do in that week, you are trying to sort of just build up resilience bit by bit, so that then they can endure like a weekend or like a week of doing some hard shit. So you were saying that like 20% of the training is like a bit more, okay, we're just going to do not necessarily random stuff, but you're just going to throw in some different things and just test them out in that way. Yeah, like I mean, I suppose for you, like how calculated are you with that? And then, or is it just more of, what do you have access to? What would be good to, maybe we just get 3 exposures of swimming before we get into the games, or like 3 exposures of open water if you thought there was going to be an open water swim. Like, how do you go about that? Because it seems that you have like a pretty formulated way of breaking it down into sort of the more CrossFit type stuff, loading, time domains and all this type of thing, but then that element of sort of surprise and that type of thing, which I suppose is the very individual thing about the games, right? It's you're taking the specialists within the sport, and you're testing. The test is a lot more generalist. So how much thought and how much planning do you have for that stuff?
I mean, a lot of it comes down to what we have available, and then honestly, time plays a big factor in it. Like, these guys will do 3 to 4 workouts across a 2-hour period, which is not really something they're going to have to do at the games, or is unlikely to have to do at the games. But they are used to doing stuff on a short turnaround. So they finish a workout, they'll rest 5-10 minutes, and then we start setting up for the next one, and then we're getting into it. So things like that, I think, do benefit them as a group. I try and mix in stuff that we haven't seen at the games in terms of the way workouts are structured, or the amount of volume they have to do on certain movements. So we did a worm clean and jerk and burpee workout last week that was 27, 21, 15. So 27 worm clean jerks, 27 burpees over the worm, 21, 15. And it's like, that volume of worm clean jerks has never been done at the games. Unlikely that we'd see it this year, but you never know. Maybe a workout finishes on 50 clean and jerks. So it's things like that, which aren't necessarily like crazy, like random things, but are thought out of what is likely volume that they're going to do on a movement. How can we make that a little bit tougher, or a little bit higher, or a little bit worse, so that they have confidence in lower capacity at the games. We have a decent amount of odd objects at our gym, so we cycle through using different sleds, and we have a torque tank and 3 different sleds, which 2 of them are the same, but they push at such different levels in terms of difficulty. Like, one of our sleds you can throw 100 pounds on, and it's like the hardest thing. One of the other sleds you can throw 300 pounds on and it still moves pretty comfortably. So, it's things like that, mixing that up. We've done a lot of strongman work this year in terms of sandbags, farmers walks, yoke carries, things like that. I think strongman implements are one of the best things for the unknown stuff of the games, in terms of prepping athletes, because they're not uniform in the way they move. You always have to adapt things a little bit based on what you've done previously, in terms of movements that they're paired with or things like that. And we've put a pretty big emphasis on the strongman side of things this year. Even if nothing comes up, like they never have to do a yoke carry or a farmer's carry or a sandbag carry. That's fine. But they've done so much of it that it's going to carry over into other things. And they're all very good athletes to the most part, in the extent that, you can throw in a bike ride and like they all know how to ride a bike. They're all like somewhat competent about riding. A few of them did a ride last weekend that was just kind of, an hour of riding a bike. I think bikes are unlikely for teams at the games, just because of the sheer logistics of it.
The games, you can always see like who the gym heroes are, right? And then you can see those people. It's really like the people who are able to pick up new skills, pick up new challenges, and just sort of be able to like trudge on. And those people with some sport training, athletic history before CrossFit tend to sort of do well. Like you see a lot of people. A lot of people, doing well who are involved in some like multi-sport previously. But that's cool, man. I suppose we should chat quickly about your teen athlete. I suppose the thing that I think everyone's pretty aware of, like how an individual would go about training for the games. But I suppose for a teen athlete, like, first of all, tell us about your teen athlete, and then also, what are some of the main differences of how you're coaching them compared to, say, an individual who was going to go to the games?
Yeah. So I started working with her just after the Open this year. So we haven't been working together that long. She her mum reached out to me. She'd been recommended by someone else that we talked to about training, because she just turned 15. So she's in the 14 to 15 division and really wanted to kind of take it seriously. And she's finished, I think, 30th, 31st in the Open, which, worldwide, that's a good position. She qualified for quarterfinals, and then from quarterfinals to semifinals, it was top 30 at quarterfinals go to semifinals, and top 10 at semifinals go to the games. So we kind of sat down, talked about it. We looked at what she was good at. She'd done weightlifting previously. So she'd qualified, I believe, for the Pan Ams for her age group for weightlifting. So, that was nice. She kind of had the strength requirements to be good in her division. She's actually, she's not far off having the strength requirements to be good in the regular division. But, her big thing was, okay, gymnastics she struggles with. She's never really done them prior to doing CrossFit. She is relatively tall. I mean, I think she's probably 5'9", which, when you're a female trying to do gymnastics, that's already on the higher end. When you take into account she's a teen athlete, it's like, okay, things are going to be tough for you. She's got long arms. She's got a long reach. She swims. She's a great swimmer.
It's not, it's not a tall person's sport.
Yeah. And, the quarterfinal workout, there was one that ended with 10 ring muscle ups, and it's, she was doing reps one at a time. She got through it, and it was fine, but it's like, okay, these are areas we need to improve for you to have a chance to do well in the sport. And honestly, at this, hold on. At the time, we weren't really expecting her to be getting to the games. You know, the thought process initially was, let's look at next year and the year after for trying to qualify for the games. But we went through quarterfinals. She finished 20th or 21st. I think Open was 30th. Quarterfinals was 21st. And, you know, there was some stuff in quarterfinals that weren't to her strengths, like the ring muscle ups. It was like, okay, had that been 20 ring muscle ups, she'd have been dropped a lot further down. 10 was just in that range. And all of a sudden we're like, okay, well, top 10 goes to the games. There's 30 people that do semifinals. Maybe there's a chance. And they released all the workouts. And really it played to her strengths. Had there been high volume ring muscle ups or strict handstand push-ups, those kind of things, she wouldn't have made it to the games. The programming was favorable to her. The legless rope climbs were to 12 feet. Had they been to 15 feet for her, she'd have struggled with them. So, yeah, she ended up finishing 10th in the semifinals and getting the last spot to the games. Which, you know, she's made some big improvements in the last 3 months that we've been working together. That's one of the most fun thing about teen athletes is how fast they improve. Like, again, we did a workout yesterday where she was doing burpees and ring muscle ups, and she was hitting repeated sets of 4 on the ring muscle ups. Having come from just being able to do like 2 as her max set, and she most of the time had to do singles. Last week she hit 12 unbroken bar muscle ups, and again in the open setting she was able to string like 2 together, and that was her limit. And she's made fast progress and improvement, and it's kind of, when you qualify in the last place position, there's almost no pressure. It's kind of like a free pass. You know, she goes to the game, she finishes 10th. I know she'll be upset, but it's like, okay, well, you qualified 10th, you finished 10th. It is what it is. Anything above that is a bonus. And the reality is, I think she's going to finish somewhere in 4 to 8, would be my guess. Kind of dependent on the workouts. There's some workouts which she can win. Give her a swim event, she's most likely going to win that event. She's a great swimmer. She did Wodapalooza this year. The swim event, she was behind getting into the water and then ended up like 3 minutes ahead of everyone getting out of the water. She's, you know, she has the events that she can win. Anything that's heavy. I mean, there's a couple of other strong girls in her division. One of the semifinal workouts had a max clean and jerk at the end of it, and she hit 196 for her clean and jerk, which was a PR. And then one of the other girls in the division hit 215. I mean, we're talking about a 15-year-old at the end of a workout hitting a 215-pound clean and jerk. It's like, you know, that's ridiculous. But, you know, there are some strong girls there, but, you know, she has the events that she can get top 3 finishes on. And there'll probably be 1, maybe 2 events where she's last or second last. But most of the things I expect her to be middle of the pack. So
yeah. So what is I suppose 2 questions I'm interested in, because she's quite a young athlete. Obviously not pre-games, but sort of post-games and stuff like that. You know, like, would you sort of like encourage her to be doing other things as well, or to sort of like, you know, or is she pretty set on, you know, being a bit more sort of specialist within CrossFit? Because I suppose, you know, it's like now you see a lot of teen athletes coming through, or a lot of people coming through it, even into like the open age group who are, you know, in their early 20s, and they've been doing it for a long time, and they're just absolute beasts in this. But then, you know, like there's a lot of thought out there that says like early specialization isn't like a, you know, great thing to do. But I suppose that's probably of more of the younger age. You know,
I think it's also more of the sport side of things. Like in CrossFit, even specializing in CrossFit means that you're pretty varied in what you're doing. If you're someone who just plays a single sport, like if you only play basketball and that's the only thing you do, like I think there's downsides to that. I think if you only did CrossFit, that's probably the best thing you could do as a singular thing. When it comes to improving,
I think depending on how you train for it, though.
Right.
I think there's a lot of people out there who are just like, it's just barbell and gymnastics, and But like, okay, so would you say for an athlete, like a teen athlete, then maybe doing weightlifting competitions or doing a local triathlon or like those types of things, would you say that that's a little bit more of like part of the training process than say it would be for an athlete who's late 20s and is sort of got all the stresses of life and is just trying to push it as much as they can?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's got to be a balance, because there's a lot of benefit to getting competition experience regardless of the type of competition. So and this all comes down to, if you want to be a competitive CrossFit athlete, if your goal is to be as good as you can be in CrossFit competitions, there's benefit to having competed in different areas of sports. How many of the current games athletes used to play other sports, whether it's individual or team sports? I think there's a lot of value to that. And I think you learn a lot about yourself and your capacity doing other sports. I think from a engagement standpoint, you need to be doing things outside of CrossFit. But at the same time, the younger you are, the more progress you make, the better you recover. And it's kind of, you want to maximize that to an extent. So, if you take a, say, 16 to 22-year-old, their capacity for recovery and the work volume they can do and still feel good and make progress is so much higher than someone who's, 28 to 32. And there's an element of wanting to make the most of that and wanting to really utilize that time and ability as much as possible. So, like, I mean, I'll sit down with Abby after the games and we'll talk about what she wants, and things may change at the games and she might decide, yeah, this was fun, but I don't want to go through the training required to come back next year. Or she might be fired up and be like, yeah, this is great, I want to go all in for this. I don't know how that's going to play out. She might change her mind halfway through the year as well. But for her, I know she plays like high school sports, and like encourage her to keep playing those and keep doing those things. As long as we're able to get some valuable training time for CrossFit, then great. If she's able to do, let's say, 5 to 6 CrossFit based sessions a week, like, she can handle capacity. Again, being as young as she is, she recovers so fast. Like, she's been doing 2-a-day training sessions and not eating, because she struggles to eat, and that's been a big thing we've worked on. But being able to get that breakthrough on getting her to eat enough and fuel her body, like, she has so much ability to train and feel good while doing it that we'll kind of try and maximize that. And yes, got to be careful avoiding burnout mentally and physically. But for her to do, she does, when she's at high school swim club, 5 to 7 in the morning when she's doing her swim team stuff. It's like, okay, if you can come back after school and do like a strength session and you still feel good the next day, then great. So
2 hours swim and then go into
yeah.
I'm not a very good swimmer, so I spend 10 minutes in the pool and it's like 100%, or I'm drowning. So any form of swimming just wrecks me. But 2 hours. Hey,
I mean, presumably it's not 2 hours straight, but yeah.
Yeah, sure, but yeah. Well,
I mean,
cool,
training
man.
for her.
Go on.
I just want to say one more thing. Like, training for her looks a lot different to what it would look like for individuals at the games, mainly because she's so new to CrossFit that there's so many areas she needs to work on. So
a lot of his more basic type stuff.
Yeah, like we've been doing a lot of gymnastics focus. She's been doing a lot of strict pulling and pressing to build that strength. And yeah, like you look at an individual games athlete in the normal division, you know, they're not doing a lot of the basics. They're doing the higher level focus stuff, the movement combinations, the capacity stuff, the random skills. It's like we started touching on pegboard work with her and handstand ramp just in case it shows up. But most of her training is really on the basics, so that there's no like huge holes in her game. Like if she got to the games and pegboards came up and she couldn't do one, that's fine. I think 14 to 15 division is unlikely to have pegboards, but you know, whatever. She can't do that. She can't do that. But it's getting her the real just kind of general capacity and strength that she needs to get through everything.
And I suppose at like that age and also that stage of development, you know, like this also equally applies with adults, but it's like you can get better just doing the basic type stuff. You don't necessarily like, you know, you see it all the time when people are, oh, you know, I hit a PR post open workout in this lift, and it's like, yeah, you can do that for me for the first 2 years of doing anything like this. But then, yeah, but that's cool, man. That's cool. Well, anyway, that was really good. That was some good insight. We'll have to make sure that we either censor all of the delicate information before the games and we release it beforehand, or we can just bring it all out after. But that was cool, man. Thank you very much for that.
I don't think there's anything too delicate there.
Yeah, well, you're just giving away all your secrets. So I'm sure some spy from Mayhem is taking a keen look at our podcast feed.
Oh yeah, and with 5 days out from the games, they're going to be cramming all the extra stuff in.
Rich, we did this all wrong.
Thanks for listening. While you're here, go ahead and head over to your podcast player, subscribe to the show, give it a rating, give it a review, all that good stuff. You can also go ahead and click through to the show notes where you can find out more about us at legionsc.com and also follow us on Instagram at legion.sc.